Welcome to the Universal Joint Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host Dustin Fuhs and I are recording this podcast on Saturday night, March 7th. Look, folks, I want to start with a quick apology. I know, look, we've all been inundated lately with news about COVID-19. You probably turned to listening to a podcast today because the television coverage of the evolving coronavirus situation is relentless. It's getting scary. That said, Universal Joint is an entertainment news show, which means that Dustin and I do have to cover what's been going on in the news lately, especially when it comes to the Universal Parks and Resorts. And these days, that does include COVID-19. That said, I will promise that Dustin and I will deliberately fold in some entertainment, as we report the increasingly grim stuff. So please hang in there in this week's podcast. I promise that there will be some fun and hopeful stories sprinkled in between. Like, Dustin, weren't you talking about the food that was about to debut at Dead Endless Summer? Didn't they do a preview there just this past week or thereabouts?
Yeah, the fact that they put something out about the food at the Endless Summer, I was just like, oh, yes, please. This is exactly the news that I would like to pay attention to right now. It looks like they've got breakfast and lunch. The breakfast looks really good. It looks like they're doing a chicken and waffles, classic stuff. The high-res photos that they have on the Universal Orlando blog, very helpful for people like me who we can read, but we also want to visually, get the saliva glands going. But their big picks for the lunches and the dinner are the burgers. It looks like they're doing the Joey sandwich, which is a hoagie with salami, provolone cheese, roasted red peppers, and just overall good stuff. And they're doing a key lime pie and a cinnamon and sugar. It's called Zeppolis. It's an Italian treat consisting of a fried fritter. Like, I'm sorry, this is the news that I love, and I was a big fan when I got this notification that, hey, you can go to Endless Summer Resort Dockside Inn and pick up some good eats.
And is there official opening date? This is a food court? Is that?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be part of the, because it's a value resort. So because of that, they're going to want to give you value options for dining before you head over to the parks. Right. So it looks like it's going to be open when the Endless Summer Resort, the Dockside, comes online.
The phase one of Dockside, right?
Yes. Surfside is coming. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm a big fan of this.
Okay, well, there you go, folks. We started off with...
We tried.
We tried. Okay, go from the cookie to... all right, last weekend, there was a lot of talk about how the Tokyo Disney Resort suddenly closed its two theme parks, Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Seas. This was done because the Japanese government, in an effort to stop the spread of the coronavirus, asked all businesses to cancel or postpone any big events for at least 2 weeks. So Oriental Land Company honored, that edict and shuttered the two Disney theme parks in Tokyo, along with the hotels that support that resort, from February 29th to March 15th. But what wasn't as widely reported, Dustin, was that Universal Studios Japan, which is located in Osaka, also shuttered for that same period of time, February 29th through March 15th. And as long as we're doing our due diligence here, we should also mention that Legoland Japan, that 23-acre park, which is located in Nagawa, also shut down February 29th through the 15th.
Well, it's all about proximity at this point. When you're dealing with a virus that's spreading by people taking public transit and various, symptoms not being originally recognized, this makes sense. There's, Japan and China and everything within that area is within reasonable distance. That there's a good chance that, the spread could easily go out there. So I appreciate that. And I think the first step towards Disney shutting their parks was actually they stopped having the face characters meet and greet. They went strictly to just everyone without proximity. They were sending out all those characters, and we were just like, oh, that's a very big step in one direction. Well,
now,
things have
it's
kind of
interesting
changed.
You bring up character greetings, character interactions, that sort of thing. Since 2015, the Universal Studios Japan theme park has annually staged this seasonal event called Universal Cool Japan. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about this, Dustin, is that this event typically celebrates popular characters from manga, anime, and gaming. Previous years, they've built the event around popular Japanese entertainment brands such as Attack on Titan, Detective Conan, Monster Hunter, and Godzilla, which, again, kind of breaks my heart that I didn't get to see that. Now, interesting, Lupin the Third has been a big part of Universal Studios Japan's Cool Japan thing since 2018. That year, this hugely popular Japanese entertainment brand, which debuted as a manga back in August of 1967, and just this past December, Lupin, that occasional gentleman, perpetual thief, starred in his very first full-length CG film, an animated feature with the rather confusing title, at least was translated from the Japanese to English, that CG film was basically called Lupin the Third, the First. So it's like,
that's really funny because of, the fact that we cover theme parks and Lupin the Third, the live is the, thing that they're doing here. And I'm like, yeah, but it's Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. We deal with these names all the time.
Yeah, I guess so, that they have to sort of explain what they are to folks who speak all sorts of languages. Anyway, last year, in 2018, Lupin the Third had a simulated car chase ride, and that was because Lupin in the show is always being chased by Inspector Zingata, the Japanese policeman who's determined to finally bring this master thief in. And there was also a Lupin-themed restaurant. Kind of interesting for 2020, what they did is they decided to stage, as Dustin just described, Lupin the Third, the Live, which is a stunt show, which is presented in the Delancey section of Universal Studios Japan. It's a bunch of live performers dressed as some of the better-known characters from this entertainment brand. And it's since December 21st. This show has been presented live, and it was initially supposed to run through June. Mm-hmm. And hugely popular. People would crowd into this corner of Universal Studios Japan several times a day to watch this show. And there was one Universal annual pass holder, a 5-year-old boy, who just loved Lupin the Third, so much so that when this year's edition of Universal Cool Japan opened, he asked his mom basically to take him to the Universal Studios Japan park as often as he could. And he'd literally spend the day on Delancey Street watching the Lupin the Third live show. And his mom really leaned into this little boy's obsession. She actually made him his very own Inspector Zingata outfit. I mean, it's amazing. It's authentic in every detail, down to its teeny tiny trench coat and his slouch hat. If you look around online, there's some incredibly cute pictures out there of this 5-year-old boy with his Inspector Zingata outfit interacting with the cast of the Lupin the Third, the Live stunt show. The Universal team members who perform this show several times daily have basically made this kid their mascot.
That's awesome.
And, they went out of their way to greet him whenever he was there for the show and the picture. I mean, it was really, really sweet what they did. But, of course, on February 28th, word comes down that Universal Studios Japan would be shutting till at least March 15th and possibly longer. That's kind of keying off of the word that's, I guess, is coming out of China, that it could be long as 6 weeks for this virus to pass through, your system. So, and since this theme park in Osaka suddenly closed, that means this poor little boy, again, it's the Lupin the Third, the live stunt show has been discontinued. He doesn't know when it's coming back. And, the thing is that they got word that he was sitting at home heartbroken. He didn't know when he was going to see his friends again. And so one day this past week, a letter shows up at the little boy's house. And if you look at the outside of the envelope, it would appear to have been written by Lupin III himself. And, so it basically reads Little Zengata, as in the teeny tiny version of Inspector Zengata. And it says, "Hey, little pops, I'm Lupin III. It might be impossible to go to Universal Studios for a little while, but do you think you can do a mission in the meantime? Could you please protect your mom from the coronavirus? This is a very important mission. The virus will someday be cured, and then I'll be back at Universal Studios." What I just when you
Tears.
think about, and again, is when you think about how much of the news lately is full of people behaving in incredibly stupid and selfish ways. And to think that this is the theme park employee who went out of his way to do this for a 5-year-old boy. And you and I both know what theme park employees are paid. So the fact that they even had the money for the envelope.
Yeah.
But, it just that the fact they did this for this kid just makes me feel like eventually things are going to be okay again if we can just hang in there. But at the same time, folks, you have to remember that Universal Studios Japan is not the only Universal theme park over in Asia. And Dustin, you did a quick check on what's going on with the construction of course, Universal Studios Beijing. And we have some news about the company that is handling the hotels associated with that. But we're still, 2021?
Yep.
That's what we're looking at for the opening there.
And that's a projection that was if everything goes perfectly.
Yeah.
I don't think this falls under that heading anymore.
No, that's but in addition to Beijing, which again, it's opening in the future, we have Universal Studios Singapore, which is part of the Resorts World Sentosa. And for those of you who don't know, that's an Asian destination resort that originally opened up back in January of 2010. This $6.7 billion project includes 6 on-site hotels, 2 casinos, 15 restaurants, dozens of shops, an Adventure Cove water park, a clone of the CEA Aquarium, and, of course, Universal Studios Singapore theme park. By the way, Dustin, March 18th, this month, is the official 10th anniversary of the opening of Universal Studios Singapore.
Oh, wow.
And they did have some sort of a commemorative event planned, but that's now quietly been tabled in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak.
Yeah, they'll definitely do something online and then postpone what they were going to do. I'm sure that people would still love to go and see this experience. I'm looking at some of the locations there. I'm like, wow, this actually looks really fun.
It does. But here's the thing. Now, remember, I just mentioned that Resort World Sentosa has 2 casinos. These feature 2,400 gaming machines, 500 gaming tables. And to be honest, it's this aspect of this Asian destination resort that explains why, in spite of the increasingly grim news about the ongoing outbreak of COVID-19, this is why Universal Studios Singapore hasn't closed yet. And now, Dustin, let's be completely fair here, not to be hypocritical, because the exact same issue, the same sort of discussions are going on in Nevada right now. I mean, Las Vegas has only just begun to recover from that mass shooting back in October of 2017 when 58 people were killed and 413 others were wounded.
Yeah. That was that outdoor concert.
Yeah. And so officials in that city are now terrified that, if people are being told to avoid crowded public places, the $6.6 billion that city earns annually just from gambling.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's finally getting back up to speed. That'll slow to a trickle again. And so this is why Las Vegas, just like, Resorts World Sentosa, they're kind of whistling in the dark. I mean, look, they're doing very public gestures. They're increasing the frequency of disinfection, especially when it comes to high traffic areas. In fact, the interesting thing is they're putting out hand sanitizers and masks and thermometers, at various touch points. And it's interesting that just over the last day or so. There's been a lot of photos posted online about hand sanitizers popping up all over the Walt Disney World Resort. But long story short, in Vegas and also at Resorts World Sentosa, the casinos are not closing.
Yeah.
And,
well, and Vegas is going through a weird time as well because this year in July is when the new, what is it going to be called? The Allegiant Stadium is opening in support of the Las Vegas Raiders, brand new NFL team. It's a huge field that they're building, and it's actually pretty cool. The field itself actually leaves the stadium and is stored outside. So it's actually on a pulley system. Amazing stuff down there. But the reason that it's kind of interesting is that Vegas is a place where people always thought, oh, we're just going to go there. You do the strip, and then you do your shows. Then you go and do the Cirque du Soleil and such. But with the inclusion of the Vegas Golden Knights hockey team and now the Raiders, this year is a big year for this community, and something like casinos where people are constantly, playing touch machines and, card games and everything. Like a card game could potentially be catastrophic if not caught correctly. So it's a very real thing. And especially in the theme parks, you're going around and I'm not going to kind of go down that road of who's sitting in your seats and that kind of thing. Disney's very good at cleaning things up, but it's just a lot of people kind of taking things to that next step.
Well, and now it's interesting you bring this up because we now pivot to Universal Studios Singapore, which in a weird way may be a coming attraction, because again, that theme park has to stay open to make sure that people are coming to this Asian destination resort to play at those casinos.
Sure.
But what they've done, to be responsible in the face of the coronavirus is, first of all, they've crept in the operating hours of the park in a really, severe manner. The park is currently operating from 10 a.m. daily to 5 p.m. daily. And then, because again, remember, we have countries like France that have banned any event where 5,000 people congregate, because again, the worry about infection. So, for example, the Universal Studios Singapore, to deal with the issue of people crowding together and increasing their possible chances of infection, that theme park has canceled all presentations of its Hollywood Dream Light Up Parade, as well as its nighttime fireworks show, the Lake Hollywood Spectacular. Those are shut down through April of 2020. More interesting, at least to me, is the fact that Universal Studios Singapore right now is screening every guest as well as every team member as they enter that theme park. That theme park's main entrance has been reconfigured, as well as all of the back of the house entry points, the way that various team members get into the park for the day before they begin work. Every person coming on property now has a mandatory temperature check, which at a point that's manned by a security guard and medical personnel who are wielding thermal scanners. And anyone who's showing a high rate of fever is then not allowed into Universal Studios Singapore.
Because that's how they're, making sure that virus doesn't spread. That's one of their tests. They can go through and just be like, if you have a fever, this is not the place for you right now.
Yeah. But the more interesting thing is, face it, people have sort of the equivalent of self-medicating in that they're walking in wearing surgical masks that they brought from home. And this is why Universal Studios Singapore had to develop new safety policies in regard to this medical gear. Because think about it. All right, it's one thing if, you're wearing a surgical mask and you get on a slow-moving attraction. You're on the equivalent of Small World or that sort of thing. But think about it. If you were on the Hulk coaster.
On the Hulk or something, yeah.
Yeah, and, so what they're doing is they're asking people for the length of the ride on thrill rides to remove their masks. Now, I bring this mask on ride thing up because out in Southern California, there's already been a significant number of guests who are visiting theme parks in this part of the country. Because remember, we just had Governor Newsom just 3 days ago declare a state of emergency for California. So there are a lot of people showing up at the parks wearing these surgical masks, which is why Disney Parks Experiences and Products, Universal Parks and Resorts, Six Flags Entertainment Corporation, Cedar Fair LP, as well as SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment have all had to come up with their own policies on the fly as they try to get their arms around COVID-19 and how it's going to impact the day-to-day operations of these theme parks.
Yeah, because you're not going to be able to just combat this by putting hand sanitizer, things in front of restaurants. You're going to have to do something a little bit more proactive. And that sounds like what they're doing.
And what I can't help but think of is, remember, on September 12th, 2001, when folks got up to go to the Disney theme parks the next day, there were these security stations that had been constructed overnight. When we're saying security station, we're literally talking about folding tables that had been set up in front of the turnstiles. But you got this additional bag check that came out of nowhere. And in fact, in a weird sort of way, I feel terrible think about Disney Hollywood Studios and how they've just reconfigured the entrance to that park. So it's, so much more user-friendly for, where the Skyliner comes in and the new setup for the buses and all that. And it's, so much more efficient, so much smoother than it was, but it was never set up to have an additional position where, even after the bag check, you'd then have to do a thermal scan before you allow people into the park. And now, you have to assume that they're having those meetings about this now, that what do we do and where do we do this? And more to the point, how do you tell somebody who's bought, paid thousands of dollars to fly down to Disney World, who's bought a hotel room on property, that you have a fever, you can't come into our theme park? That's going to be some impressive guest recovery efforts that are going to need to be done there. Again, I don't want to bring this up to scare people, but let's be honest. What was it? Just this past Friday, we saw South by Southwest, the festival.
I saw this. It was crazy. But not crazy like that, but the amount of people who visit Austin. I saw a little bit of a documentary on kind of how many people plan their not just vacations, but also bands.
Oh, yeah.
How they put South by Southwest on their tour schedule each and every single year in order to start their entire year. This was big news. Well,
especially given that the mayor of Austin actually came out and said, this is literally a local disaster because, this was going to be the 35th anniversary presentation of this festival that celebrates music, film, and technology. And they estimated, because they canceled the event, that this is going to take $375 million out of the local economy.
Wow.
And not to belabor the point here, but as I was sitting there looking at the Southwest news, Dustin reached out to me and said, "Did you see the PeacockLive news?" Why don't you explain what happened there?
Sure. We saw a little bit of rumbling on social media, and then we saw a tweet go out, and I grabbed a screen grab and flipped it over to you as soon as I saw that. And it basically read that due to uncertainty surrounding some of the event's programming elements, we have decided to postpone our special fan event, Peacock Live. We look forward to seeing you on the historic backlot of our studio and are disappointed that we will not be able to hold the event on the original dates as planned.
And
so what they did...
just to interrupt here. The original dates of that were March 28th and March 29th of this month. And
yes,
want to stress here that Peacock Live was supposed to be NBC Universal Comcast's equivalent of a D23 Expo. It was supposed to be an event that talked up new films.
All parts of the company.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about like, the theme parks or anything. No, they had The Voice there. They had all the TV personalities mixed in with everything that Comcast and Universal have in their repertoire, and being like, no, this is where you want to be if you're a theme park fan and you love everything about the parks, but you also want to be in that next part of digital streaming. You want to be in Peacock Live. Yeah, it definitely turned out to be a very unique piece of news, because we're talking about 20 days out. At this point, it was about 27 or 28. But things have changed very quickly when it comes to these events.
Yeah, and I made some phone calls, reached out to friends to get some additional info on this, and
Sure.
Folks in Hollywood did not want to cancel this event. They were pushing back hard about it, but it was actually the executives. You have to understand that Comcast corporate headquarters is in Philadelphia. And, they've been looking over the horizon at all of these events that are being canceled or rescheduled. Just today, for example, the American Film Institute had a Lifetime Tribute Award that was going to be presented to Julie Andrews in April. And they announced again, just one of these things out of an abundance of caution. Event was going to be held in L.A. They were pushing it off till late summer. And the elephant in the room, of course, is with California declaring a state of emergency, Governor Newsom behind that, Comcast executives felt uneasy about going out to Southern California to a crowded theme park for this event and potentially exposing not only themselves, but the talent that was supposed to take part in this event, Peacock Live, which is, again, is why it got postponed. And what the folks who run the Universal Studios Hollywood theme park are very, very, very concerned about at this point is the unanswered question to the effect of, okay, if it's unsafe for Comcast executives from Philadelphia and celebrities who are going to take part in these panels to come into a crowded theme park, why then is this theme park still up and running?
Yeah. What about us? What about our guests? What about the hundreds of thousands of people that are spending huge amounts of money and coming down here and not just being exposed? We're talking about potentially, having that thing on the back of your shoulder being like, was I there at that exact moment when something happened?
Yeah. So, the guys in Philadelphia don't care. Just sort of like,
sure.
That's your problem. All right. Well, again, folks, we promised happy stories.
We're going to try.
We're going to try. We get from the bake, happy stories.
Yes.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
And happy story, Universal Studios Hollywood. Hey, you saw the pictures from the inside of Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash, right?
Yes, I want to be there. Like, it looks cool.
This is
the detail in that area is basically taking things to a very immersive set. Mm-hmm. And I love like the hidden gems and everything. And they'll continue to come out in between now and the opening, but oh my, as a theme park fan, this is exactly where you want to see this opportunity for Secret Life of Pets to really take its theme park adventure. It's going to be awesome.
Forbes did a piece about this in the past week, and they were talking about how this attraction was in development for 2.5 years. In fact, we were just noticing, for example, going through the shots of the animatronic figures. And by the way, folks, 64 different animatronic figures inside of this thing.
Oh, that is a theme park fan. That's what you want to hear. No more screens. Give me audio animat. Oh, wait. No, there's screens.
Well, yeah, that's in fact that one of the more interesting things about this attraction is the gimmick is that you're in a cardboard box sort of rolling through the world of Secret Life of Pets. In fact, you start in Katie's apartment and you eventually end up in the streets of New York. And at one point you're in Cat Alley. So there's a lot of stuff that if you're a fan of the 2 Illumination films from the Secret Life of Pets franchise, this is well worth checking out. But what's interesting is that when you're in that cardboard box rolling through this attraction, you're supposed to be a puppy. And, to sort of reinforce this idea as you pass mirrors and televisions and that sort of thing, when you look to the side, you'll see an image of the cardboard box you're in, but with puppies. But the thing is, there will be a puppy in the attraction that follows your movement. So if you lift a hand, the puppy will lift its paw. If you turn your head, the puppy in the vehicle will turn its, it sounds amazing from a technological point of view.
Sure.
What's especially interesting on the heels of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Heels, because you said puppies.
Yeah.
That's a great pun.
Okay.
Completely. See, we're having fun in the second part of this. We have to.
We're
Corona.
trying. Okay, but what's interesting about coming on the heels of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opening with its trackless technology, remember, there was a time that Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash, in fact, the name Off the Leash was because they were going to use trackless vehicles. But in the end, the decision was made to go with more of a tracked vehicle, but to lean into this technology where you're a puppy. You're literally part of the show. One interesting bend on this thing, given that Secret Life of Pets 2 didn't do all that well at the box office last year, kind of interesting that there are characters from that film, a rooster, the farm dog that Harrison Ford voiced for that movie, likewise Daisy,
that was Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah, the cockapoo or whatever that was. Yeah. Gonna be interesting to see if this one travels, because I think you were mentioning, Dustin, that I guess the conceit is the Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash is located at Pet's Place.
Yeah.
Which used to be Baker Street in that theme park, and it's right across the street from Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem. So this is sort of the Illuminations neighborhood now. Yeah,
this is kind of where something like Shrek could possibly, that's a very high traffic location. Yeah. I don't know, doing the Google Maps view and actually seeing where they could plug something like this in, you never know.
Well, now remember, they did just recently, 2 and 3 years ago now, Shrek 4D was pulled out of the upper lot and turned into the DreamWorks Theater.
Yeah, the Black Box Theater.
Yeah, has that Kung Fu Panda 4D movie there, but which, again, we keep hearing is potentially headed to Florida. In fact, the other thing worth mentioning here, and I think we talked about this actually on our tour in November, was that a Universal Island Adventure came within inches of getting its own version of Secret Life of Pets. I guess they had done all the measuring and were within inches of pulling down the old Toon Lagoon Amphitheater, the one that you pass as you're walking up from Marvel Superhero Island to up into Toon Lagoon. And that project got stopped just before they began demo. So got to wonder if this one's successful. We'll see it pop up somewhere in Florida.
Yeah, and speaking of pop-ups for The Secret Life of Pets, it looks like it's opening to the public on the 27th of March. But if you're an annual pass holder, you can sign up for preview rides on the Universal Pass Member Preview website. So just head through, you put in your Pass Member ID, and then you reserve, it's limit one reservation date per Pass Member.
Very cool. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Okay, we were talking about Florida. I guess we should talk about the new attraction that's about to debut there, the Bourne Stuntacular. We had talked about the live remote that the Today Show did at the tail end of February. And folks, you can actually go on YouTube right now. Today Show has posted a video of a segment that their correspondent Natalie Morales did, which showed her working with the stunt team for the Bourne Stuntacular. And what was fascinating is they showed a lot of the state-of-the-art projection technology that's going to be used with this thing. I shot this video to you, Dustin, because I wanted you to take a look at the crowd scene, the street fight that they replicate, where there's, 3 performers standing in front of a giant screen, and there's a projected crowd of have to be 40,
It's got to be
50?
at least 30 people in that.
Yeah, and it looks, you buy it. It looks amazing. So, at the very least, this is going to have some pretty stunning, technology.
For me, what really shocked me was the amount that they showed the theater itself. Mm-hmm. And when you go into this theater, and as theme park fans and as people who love this type of technology, look up. That's all you have to do. Look up, see the transformation that they've put into this space, and just be on the lookout for things that will make you happy when you see the amount of skill that goes into putting on this show, how many times a day. Like it looks like it's a fun show, not only to watch, but also to perform.
Yeah. Now, what's kind of intriguing is we don't have an official opening date yet, but it turns out the Bourne gift shop is open. The problem is in a weird sort of way, the merch, the T-shirt, the coffee mug, the water bottle, reveals just as much as the Bourne logo and name on the marquee, which is nothing. It's one of these things where I get it. It's about a secret agent, but you could tell me a little bit about the show. Yeah. What's more interesting, though, is it's a double purpose gift shop. This is also where you can buy the Universal Classic Monsters merch. In fact, they have giant-sized figures in there of Frankenstein's monster and the Bride of Frankenstein. So it's
they've got a full set of Jaws merchandise and Ghostbusters stuff. Yeah. This is where I want to spend some money in.
But that's the thing. If you think about it, no more Jaws attraction, no more Ghostbusters attraction. It's kind of intriguing. But again, this is where you go to get that in that park. Anyway, I can't help but think, given that Elizabeth Moss's Invisible Man movie, which was #1 at the box office this past week, and is now running a strong #2 behind Pixar's Onward. I wonder if, we wait a couple of weeks, we'll see some Invisible Man T-shirts or that sort of thing in there.
Absolutely.
I don't know. That film, I have to admit, I'm not big into scary movies, so I probably won't buy a ticket and go out and see it in theaters, but I'll go out of my way to catch it when it pops up on cable or that sort of thing. But
we're on Peacock Live.
Oh, yes. And speaking of Peacock Live, when we were talking about this pre-show, you say, I think we already talked about this, but I still wanted to put this out there. In January, Comcast revealed that Peacock, their new streaming service, will essentially come in 2 different flavors. If you want it commercial free, it's $9.99. If, on the other hand, you can tolerate some ads, they're perfectly happy to sell it to you for $4.99 a month. We were at a party this evening talking with friends about Disney Plus, and these friends had bought CBS Access just so they could watch Picard. And, the whole notion of we got talking about Peacock Live and how the event had gotten canceled, but this was going to be where, Comcast was going to roll out its subscription streaming service. And it was just this whole notion of how much am I going to have to pay, between Netflix and Amazon, to get all
Disney Plus and, sports, ESPN. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, it looks like Peacock Premium will have more than 15,000 hours of content with more than 600 movies, 400 TV shows. But something that we've talked about on this show, as well as we actually brought it up on the We Like Theme Park show, is the difference between these streaming services that just put out movies and TV shows that people have already seen and what we're thinking Comcast is going to be going towards, which is the live mixed in with the daily experiences. And I think that's something that Disney Plus is kind of missing, because you don't have that reason to log in each and every single day, where I believe that's where Comcast is going to be heading, because they do have a lot of live sports and things that they put out there on a day-to-day basis.
And in fact, it's interesting you bring that up, because of course they've got the Summer Olympics in Tokyo this summer, which, by the way, again, to swing back to
Fingers
coronavirus.
crossed.
Yeah. There are some concerns right now about whether or not this will go forward. But I bring up the Summer Olympics because Steve Burke, the chief executive of NBC Universal, I'm actually kind of embarrassed, Dustin, that we didn't talk about this earlier. I mean, I know we've talked on the show about Bob Iger, effectively stepping down, and Bob Chapek stepping up. But we have Steve Burke, the CEO of NBC Universal, who announced, back in early January that he was going to stay on with the company through August and effectively do a victory lap that ended with the Summer Olympics. But Jeff Shell is now, as of January 1st, the new CEO. And that he's the one who's going to be reporting to Brian Roberts and, calling the shots as company goes boldly marching into 2020, with the coronavirus and all of us changing how we watch our television. And I just, at the same time, there's just a part of me when I look at what Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman are doing with Quibi and the whole notion of, they're betting. Think about it. Here's Disney, here's Comcast, here's CBS Access betting that we still do want to watch, half hour and hour long television shows, or God help us that we said we want to watch all 3.5 hours of The Irishman. And here's Quibi betting that no, what you really want to watch is something that's 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes long. At the same time, understanding that some of this stuff will succeed and some of this stuff will actually end up in a theme park somewhere.
Sure.
I don't know. It's such a strange time. In fact, to sort of bring things full circle here, I mean, Bob Chapek did an interview with laughingplace.com, and they asked him a very interesting question. It was about, the number of attractions going into the Disney theme parks that were now featured IP from current films and
sure,
that sort of thing. And Chapek, to his credit, didn't shy away from answering the question. He basically said, our characters and the stories we tell at Disney are the reason people come to our theme parks. They want to spend time with those characters. They want to revisit those stories. And and it's like, look, if our competitors had those characters and those stories, they wouldn't hesitate to put them into their theme parks. And I can't help but look at Universal and see A Secret Life of Pets opening on the 27th of this month, and
the Born Stuntacular
opening in Florida. Yeah.
And the Today Show Cafe. And absolutely, it makes sense. When you have the IP that people like, why wouldn't you use it?
Yeah. But at the same time, it means, we're never going to get in that world, in that theme park environment, we're never going to get another Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yep. No more Haunted Mansion. No more Everest.
But we'll get a Jungle Cruise movie,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm sorry, folks.
If you would like, I can give them one nice thing to head out with the 2-day 2-park ticket coming out.
That's
we'll end on something really, really fun.
Yeah. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, so it looks like if you are thinking about heading to Universal Orlando, do a little bit of research into this 2-day, 2-park ticket, because it looks like they're bringing back the special ticket offer that they did last year, which is guests who purchase a 2-day, 2-park will receive an extra 2 days free to enjoy the thrills and excitement at Universal Studios Florida and Islands. There is an upgrade if you would like to. I believe it's $40 to get into Universal's Volcano Bay theme park. You know, look for the deals for you. So this is what you come to the Universal Joint Podcast for, right?
Well, I do
I tried.
Want to point out that this offer became available on February 24th, and this was the day when the news broke out of China that they'd had 2,600 deaths from the coronavirus. So, yeah, there's the fact.
Not saying there is a correlation at all.
That if you talk to the number of airlines who've canceled flights because people aren't traveling. Again, we live in interesting times, folks. And
that's true.
And we try to tell the interesting stories here at the Universal Joint Podcast or the event we held in November. And speaking of which, want to let you guys know that we were teaming with Storybook Destinations, the travel agency that helps Jim Hill Media stage all of its previous live events. We're doing another get-together in November, folks. So mark your calendars, please. This is November 13th through the 16th of 2020. That's when myself, Michelle Valladolid, and Dustin Fuhs, you may know that gentleman, we're headed down to Florida for, God help us, this is the name of the event, folks, Jim's Disney Springs Thing. Going to do a lot of fun stuff. There are going to be trivia contests and scavenger hunts. Those will be handled by Mr. Fuhs.
Hi.
Not to mention, we're going to visit Disney's West Side to catch a performance of Drawn to Life, the Cirque du Soleil show that's Disney-centric. Just began previews this month. In fact, what is it, on March 20th?
Yeah, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes video showing up with that. I'm actually really excited with the access that we've been getting before anyone's even seen it.
Yeah.
I got to put a positive spin on it in this show. Come on.
Let me put it this way. I'm always glad to see Eric Goldberg. I don't know what Eric Goldberg is doing next to Gymnast, but I'm always glad to see Eric Goldberg. Part of this event will also be talking about the history of the late, great Pleasure Island, as well as heading over to Disney's Boardwalk. For those of you who don't remember, that was the Imagineers' original plan. They were going to build a second nighttime entertainment district that was supposed to be a sequel to Pleasure Island. That was where, there was literally going to be a restaurant called Walt's Attic where you were going to be surrounded by treasures from the Disney archive, not to mention a Little Mermaid dinner show. And perhaps the thing that continues to break my heart, the family reunion restaurant. We ever talked about this one, Dustin?
No, I don't think we have.
This one
I think people have to come to this event just to hear about it.
Okay, well, again, if you love the Adventurers Club, you were going to really love the Family Reunion Restaurant. Anyway, again, these are the sorts of stories you'll hear if you participate in our next live event this November. Guaranteed to be a fun time. And if you want to get in on that fun, please drop Tammy Whiting a line at disneydish@storybookdestinations.com and let her know that you're interested in taking part. And as soon as we firm up the details of exactly what we're doing come November, Tammy will be back in touch. But until then, Dustin, when people need to be entertained and uplifted, they're not going to listen to me because I'm depressed about this coronavirus thing. But what about you? Where can they find you and what are you talking about?
So I'm over at the We Like Theme Parks podcast. We talk about everything in the theme parks. We just have fun with some armchair Imagineering and random trivia contests that I continue to lose. Can you believe that? I lose at trivia. It's crazy.
Shock.
Which, by the way, if you come to our event, there's a very good chance you will beat me at trivia. But we're over there. We put out a new podcast every week. And I'm also at stepstomagic.com, Disney Universal trip planning, all that fun stuff. And I think you have what? You're up to 37 podcasts?
No, 6, but actually Drew and I are talking about 7. Okay, speaking of which, Drew Taylor and I do Fine Tuning, which is about animation, news, and history. We have the Looking at Lucasfilm podcast, which I do with Dan Z. The I Want That podcast, which is about Disney merch. That's with Michelle Valladolid, who will be co-hosting the November event with myself and Dustin. We, of course, have The Mothership, Disney Dish with Len Testa. And then we have Marvelous Disney, which is about, of course, all things Marvel, Cinematic Universe, television, and the like. I do that with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who edits a lot of the podcasts here at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. Tell you what, folks, if you could do Dustin and I a favor, if you could head over to iTunes and rate and recommend not only Universal Joint, but also the We Like Theme Parks podcast, that would be great. Likewise, if you really, really, really like what you're listening to here, if you could go head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that helps keep the lights on. What about social media, Dustin? Where are you there?
I'm usually over at Instagram, Steps to Magic, We Like Theme Parks. And I've been dabbling a little bit more in Twitter, but I turn off my actual function to tweet, and I'm more just reading the news. So I've been using the mute button a lot more because I still like to hear the opinions of people who I trust. But it's just so much information at this point in time. So yeah, it's fun. Honestly, how I get my entertainment news is just like anybody else. I subscribe to your other shows. It makes life easier.
Well, social media for us. Let's see. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram as Jim Hill Media. And over at Facebook, we are under Jim Hill Media News. Not sure why that is.
But anyway, somebody got Jim Hill Media.
Something about that. Anyway, folks, again, sorry if this was somewhat depressing, but again, we are headed into interesting times. And when it comes to our entertainment news, and the weird thing is that we're seeing, for example, Universal is actually benefiting from, for example, from the coronavirus. I don't know if you saw how, for example, Dustin, No Time to Die, the Bond 25, was looking at the fact that they weren't going to be able to open in China day and date. And the concern was that, that there's only one Bond 25. This is an event. So they actually pushed the release of this MGM film. I think Universal actually handles it internationally, but they push it off 7 months to the fall. And And what was interesting is that then left the weekend of Easter wide open. And here was Universal with Trolls World Tour, which was actually going to open the following weekend on April 17th. And as soon as they saw Bond step out of that space, it's like, oh, we have to grab that. So that's why now Trolls World Tour is going to open on April 10th. But the downside is, of course, because Peacock Live is canceled, that was actually going to be, if you went to the Peacock Live event, you could actually have gone out to the AMC City Walk and seen, that film on the 28th and 29th out ahead of, now this moved up release. So, like I said, interesting times, and then things are changing all the time. Dustin and I will try to keep you updated on these things. And so come on back in 2 weeks, folks, and hopefully we'll have some better news, okay?